Hi everyone and welcome to the Financial Fox. It has been a while, but we are back and I hope you are all well and keeping safe wherever you are in the world. We have been pretty busy, actually, digging into the world of decentralized finance and planning some interesting interviews for all of our subscribers. So first of all, thank you so much to everyone for watching and supporting our channel. If you like the content, please like it, share it, and engage with us because your contribution is so important to get us more subscribers and grow the channel so we can keep providing valuable content to all of you. So we are going to create a playlist focused on the world of decentralized finance, or DeFi. So we can introduce you to a few interesting projects. Make sure that also you send us your feedback and any suggestion that you have. I will try to keep it to basic questions so even non-crypto people can familiarize themselves with the space, because more and more investors are really willing to going into this crypto and decentralized finance space, because this is really where the big opportunities and money are. So let's get started. Today on the show, we have Mr. Piers Ridyard, CEO of Radix, a layer 1 protocol specifically built to serve DeFi. I'm actually very excited to speak to Piers because what they are doing is pretty different. They are not offering blockchain technology, but something else that can really enhance and improve the decentralized finance or DeFi space. So let me connect to Piers and find out more about Radix. Hi, Piers. How are you?
Hey, Steph. Great to be here. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Fantastic. I'm so excited actually to have you on the show because, there is a lot that we can talk about. Let's begin with the concept of decentralized finance or DeFi before we go into Radix. Many people are still have to fully understand the space. I mean, they know it's the revolution of finance, but do you maybe want to comment on that and the current status of the market and why this is the main thing, why it is important that everyone start to get familiar with DeFi?
Sure. So decentralized finance, at the very highest level, the way I always describe it is it's like the internet and finance had a baby. It's essentially taking all of the things that make the internet powerful and applying a lot of those like building blocks to finance. And what that means is basically, right now, you can think of finance like an archipelago. So an archipelago is a chain of islands, like the Caribbean is an archipelago. And so if I have a stock market in America, let's say the New York Stock Exchange, and then I have a stock market in China, say the Shanghai Stock Exchange, and I own some stocks in America, and I want to sell those stocks in America, and I want to buy some other stocks in China. And let's say that I don't have any money. All I've got is those stocks. That's all my assets. What I've got to do is I have to be onboarded with this one little island that's called the New York Stock Exchange. And I have to get my money out, put it into the banking system, wait 3 to 5 days for it to transfer all the way over to China, then put it into a new little island called the Shanghai Stock Exchange, and then get the stocks I want, which is kind of crazy. And it's all these like really broken bits that sort of chain together the financial industry that is actually really broken. And what decentralized finance is all about is going, what if we had a single piece of infrastructure, a public ledger, a public decentralized platform that we could build these financial applications, that businesses could come, competing businesses could come along and build these financial applications, but that money and assets could move instantaneously between them. So suddenly I can go from owning a stock on the Shanghai stock market to owning a stock on the New York stock market in an instant, in a single transaction. And this is what decentralized finance is getting to. It's reshaping, it's rebuilding all of the financial product primitives, all of the financial products that we used to thinking about in centralized financing. into decentralized finance products. And this is a real difference from what came in 2017 when we had the ICO bubble of 2017. Everything was a speculative market from the point of view of this doesn't exist yet, but if you buy our token, we're going to create a decentralized marketplace for X. Whereas what decentralized finance is doing is going, we're actually deploying code that is creating financial products like lending products or exchange products or synthetic products. And you can use them today. And you can go and put money in, and I can go and put money into, let's say, Aave. I can put some true USD, a stable coin, a fiat-backed stable coin into Aave, and I can get 8% on my money. And I can do it instantly. And I can do it now. It's not, we will build this in the future. It's happening now. And that's why people are really excited about decentralized finance. And we're already seeing $22 billion of value being locked up in these applications being built on top of these platforms.
So exactly, and that is I think one of the things that people like is actually get empowered as well. So, you know, they don't have to pay these middlemen and, you know, get through all these kind of different routes in order to get money from one end to the other. It's exciting.
Yeah, reducing friction is a huge part of this, and like there are still fees in there. Like the concept of disintermediation, which is what you're talking about, is an interesting one because it never looks exactly like the ideal. It just looks better than what we have at the moment. Like there is still applications like Aave and Uniswap and Compound, and those applications make money, right? They're still an intermediary of some description because it's not free for me to come on and use those platforms, but they are providing a service in a way that is way more low friction, way easier to get into and out of, and way easier to move your assets between. But the barrier is now not in the ecosystem, but getting into the ecosystem. The act of actually getting into DeFi in the first place is still actually quite a difficult thing to do. And I think that's the big next step that the industry has to solve.
Exactly. And I think you also mentioned a point which is quite interesting because this is an ecosystem that still has some fees. So in order to make a transaction from your wallet, you still have to pay some gas fees, something that is quite high at the moment. And I think this is what is preventing people to go in because, you know, it's probably not worth to make a transaction with a couple of £100 if you have to pay, you know, such a big fee. What's your solution to that?
I mean, this is a big reason that we built Radix, right? Like Radix is the first layer 1 protocol, which, you know, you can think of layer 1 just describes things like Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's a public decentralized ledger, and we just call them layer 1 protocols. It's just the industry term and phrase. The first layer 1 protocol built specifically to serve DeFi, which is what Radix, what my company is doing. And there's all of these problems, and a big one you're talking about is this friction of using the networks. Things like Ethereum are fundamentally not coping with the level of traffic that is being created by decentralized finance. And so as a result, even though you've got all of this really interesting new ways of creating financial applications and being able to move money seamlessly between them, you're still getting very, very expensive cost of use, which means, as you say, for the small person, for the person who's dabbling, like putting $50 or $100 into DeFi, that can disappear in fees before you make any money at all. And so, you know, Radix has been building for a long time and is releasing this year a fundamentally reshaped solution to going, look, decentralized finance has a bunch of things that need to be true for it to reach mass market. Scalability is one of them. Ease of use is another one. Security is another one. Like all of these things for this to go from what it is today, which is this tiny niche market of, you know, a few thousand people still representing $22 billion. I can't over emphasize how valuable even this small number of people are, but a very small number of users versus the globe. And it's if we want to truly revolutionize finance, truly rebuild financial infrastructure such that it reduces the cost of use, increases the amount of money that an individual makes from putting their money to work, then these are massive problems that have to be solved, such as the gas fee problem on Ethereum. And this is exactly what Radix has spent all of its time building to now.
So let's focus a little bit more on that and, the problem, obviously, that you list that Radix is trying to solve. But how Radix as a platform is different from other projects? What I mean is, like, why Radix is special?
I mean, there's lots of technical answers to that. I try and stay a bit away from the technical answers. I think the real answer is that what we're trying to achieve is a unified, seamless user experience. That you as an end person who wants to use decentralized finance has the easiest possible path into and out of financial products that are built on top of these platforms. And that it is as cheap and as easy as possible, because everything that we're building from a technical point of view, like our massive scalability, our atomic composability between decentralized finance applications, our new way of building decentralized finance programs to be safer and easier for developers so we don't end up with hacks and security problems, the way in which we incentivize a network of developers to build more and more useful financial applications on top of the network, all of that under the hood is just about making this a fantastic end user experience. And so what Radix is big differentiator, when you strip away all of the technology and just leave it with what does it mean for the user, is that we are building Radix to be the first platform that the mainstream can properly use decentralized finance via, both because it's cost effective, but also because it ticks all of the other boxes that are necessary for people to feel like they can trust putting their money into a new technology, which is essentially what you're doing.
And I think just expanding a little bit on that, you are not using blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So do you maybe want to explain a little bit that? Because I think maybe for the layman that is going to be confusing, right? How they can be in DeFi not using blockchain.
So blockchain is a, like, from a technical point of view, blockchain is just a data structure, right? It's how I store the record of what has happened. So you can describe the ledger, like people often talk about decentralized ledger technologies, or the transaction is submitted to the ledger. And the ledger is taken from the term that from accounting, like what's my accounting ledger say? Oh, Steph has 500 Bitcoin and Piers has 300 Bitcoin, right? That's the ledger, that's the record. And then the blockchain is the next level down. What is the database in which I am storing those entries that say you own 500 Bitcoin and I own 300 Bitcoin? And so you can have a ledger, you can have a public decentralized ledger without having to use blockchain as the data structure that you store the data on. And what Radix has done is taken quite a radical approach, in that we realized that if you think carefully about how you build the data structure, where your public key, so your wallet address for your transactions and for your smart contracts, maps you automatically to your shard address, which is where your information is stored, you can end up creating this system that sorts transactions into buckets of related and unrelated. So if I make two transactions, they'll both be on the same shard. If you make two transactions, they'll both be on the same shard, but our transactions are not on the same shard, they're on different shards. So you've got your shard for your events and I've got my shard for my events. And what you end up having is you have this massively parallel system, which means that I only need to care about the ordering of events that are related. And this is fundamentally different from a blockchain, because what a blockchain does is it goes, I have a global ordering, right? Every single transaction, we as a network all agree that this transaction came first, and this transaction came second, and this transaction came third. Even if those transactions are not related in any way, they have to be processed in that order. And that's fundamentally what creates the bottlenecks in blockchains. That's why you can think of it as like a single thread, a single road, that every car has to go into this single lane and go through it before it is validated. Whereas what Radix does is it's just a very large multi-lane superhighway, and it just groups the related cars together, and then suddenly you can get this massively higher throughput as a result.
So using these different models, how can you still maintain security?
Mm-hmm. So,
or how security works with that?
Sure. So the thing that you need to that's different about how Radix does security versus other networks is that the nodes don't operate one set of shards. They operate across a very large number of shards. And so you can think of these nodes as overlapping. So you have, let's say that the shard range is 100, and I've got one node covering 50 shards, and another covering 25 shards, and another covering 100 shards, another covering 75 shards, and another covering blah, 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 blah. And so you can think of this as an overlapping space of nodes, where what you're not actually saying is you have completely separate nodes where the nodes don't know collectively what's happening on every shard. You don't have an isolated islands of nodes. The nodes cross over multiple shards. Is that clear so far?
Yeah.
The second part of this is that because the shard space is so large, what we don't do, which is what a lot of projects try and do, is they try and lane transactions. So they try and go, right, all transactions, we want the majority of transactions to stay within a shard, and we want to reduce the number of cross-shard transactions. What Radix does is every single transaction is by default a cross-shard transaction. So every transaction is touching at least 2 shards. If it's a smart contract transaction or a multi-sig transaction, it's going to be touching much more than 2 shards, but at least 2 shards. So your security profile isn't just the shards, just the nodes on your shard. It's the nodes on your shard and the node on the sending shard and the nodes on the receiving shard, and their overlap of the entire state space as a result of that as well. And so what you end up getting is a security, parameter, which ends up being very close to 1/3 dishonest actors from the point of view of absolute security. But because the nodes, the shards that the nodes are servicing is constantly changed, so the nodes move around in shard space, you get to a position where probabilistically speaking, you actually have to have 1/3 of total stake to guarantee the ability to break liveness or safety. So it's a different model to how Ethereum 2.0 or Polkadot or any of these other protocols do it, because what they tend to do is they have static validators that don't cross over multiple shards. Those validators have a specific subset of shards. And so what happens here is you still get this massive parallelization, but what's really important is that everything's cross-shard. So the model that you have to think about is from the point of view of cross-shard validation, and this is how we achieve this really important property called atomic composability, which means that I can compose together lots of transactions across lots of shards to all succeed or all fail, which is again one of these things that is core to DeFi and is broken by all of the new ledgers that are coming along. You know, Polkadot, Near, Avalanche, you name them, that's fundamentally being broken by these approaches. So the security model of Radix still ends up being Byzantine fault tolerant, and Byzantine fault tolerant to the expected security bounds of 1/3 malicious actors. But you still are able to get a very fast throughput on the network as a result.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that was a very interesting insight. Now, just a quick question on the name. Why did we call it Radix?
Why did we call it Radix? So Radix means root. It's Latin for root. and we liked. There's a number, like just from a geeky point of view, there's a branch of number theory called is called which you use the term radix within. You can also say radix instead of base. So like base 2 would be binary. You say radix 2. No one really says it's radix 2, but you know. But fundamentally, we like this idea of it being the root of something. So the root of finance or the root of money. So that's why we called it Radix.
Yeah, that's a great name. Anyway, you have done a successful token sale last year. And also you managed to build quite a good and engaging community among the project. Can you tell us about the challenges and how you manage actually to get people so engaged and involved in the project, which is very important for any project in the DeFi space?
Yeah, community is such a central part of what makes crypto special, and what can, if you get it right, can be such a powerful tool to a project's success, but is also sort of a very large amount of work. You're like building a community that fundamentally believes what you're setting out to do is one of the most important prerequisites. Like before you start involving money in things, like can you build a base of people who see the world as you do and believe that the approach you're taking is the right approach? Because what you need is a set of people who will be there when things go bad as well as things go well. And if you just build a community of people who are there because they think that you're going to make them a load of money, and as soon as they think that that's disappearing, you're going to end up in a situation where it's very uncomfortable. And that's true of any business. Like if you're building a traditional company and you have gone and raised equity, you tend to want to get investors that understand that building a company is not a linear journey, that there is going to be mistakes and pitfalls and setbacks, and that you are essentially buying into the team and the vision as much as you are into what you think is going to happen at the end of it in terms of returns. And I think that's the hardest thing to appreciate when you get started, because when you get started, often it's just like, oh, if I just had some money, I could do these things, because before you start building, it always seems so linear. So like the things that we've done well and we've done badly with community. Like at points there have been points where our community has been very unhappy with us, and there's been points where we've worked fantastically well with the community, and a lot of that comes down to some of it comes down to regulation and what you can and can't talk about with your community. Some of it comes down to communication. Like it's hard to communicate about failure, and it's really important to do that and bring those people along with you, because if you don't, and you end up in a situation where they're disappointed, but they're also uninformed, and that can lead to some sort of really negative situations as well. So I think that if you're setting out and you're thinking about building a community, it's understanding that those people are on the journey with you, and whatever the journey is, just making sure that you're bringing along with them as much as you can is probably the most important piece of advice. And like setting expectations early about the fact that it is going to, like, it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be linear, there is lots of things to work out and solve, but that you're committed to doing that is also the other really important point. Because if people think it's going to be easy and it turns out it's not, you end up with a much worse situation than people think it's going to be hard, but they back you in getting through that hard process. So yeah,
I think this is a great answer, and is under really good value. I think every project should actually build something keeping in mind these kind of principles. Now, what are your plans to grow the project? So what we should expect next? If you can give us, you know, a sneak peek into some of the things you are working on at the moment.
So, I mean, this year is very much a year of launches, right? We're going to be doing the mainnet. So the token has already gone live. The mainnet is going to be going live by the end of Q2 of this year. We're then going to be launching what we call the Radix Engine V2, which is our way of building decentralized finance products, like our specific approach. Strongly opinionated approach to the best way of building decentralized finance. So what you're going to expect to see is a steadily emerging picture of what we think are the key deliverables for building a platform that serves specifically decentralized finance. And so, like, it's, I think the thing that I should really sort of say up front is that we are talking about, ultimately, we are talking about a multi-decade industry that will eventually eat the financial world, but it's going to take a long time to do. Like, from the emergence of the internet as a consumer phenomenon in like the 1980s and 1990s to the first creation of things like Facebook and Google, you've got like a 15 to 25 year period, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And the reason for that is that it took so long to build all of the foundational tools to get there. So our approach is, look, decentralized finance is where product market fit is. But what everyone is currently doing is rushing to get mindshare without having actually delivered the right way of building in the first place. And what Radix is doing, aiming to do this year, is prove out the right way of building. Not by spending massive amounts of money on marketing and getting this, what I often call like a bad signal to noise ratio. Like EOS raised a horrendous amount of money and then spent $3 billion trying to build a developer ecosystem and got nothing in the process because they thought it was just a matter of throwing money at a problem. When actually what you're trying to do is you are the enabler of other people's success. Your product is essentially a platform to allow people to have a springboard to be successful, right? If you come on Radix, what we want that to be is the best possible springboard, the best possible decision for your company for the long run. Like, if you think you're going to be successful, you want the platform that makes it as easy as possible long term to get that success and then scale into that success. And everything that we're doing is about making sure that that's true, that you come to Radix, you're going to have less problems building, less problems deploying, less problems scaling, less problems users using your product than anywhere else.
Okay, and that's fantastic, and lots to expect then for this year. Finally, the last question, so we can wrap it up, is maybe if you can talk to those people who are not trading in DeFi yet, and they maybe like what you said, they want to get into Radix, how they can get started.
Oh, very, very easily. If you already understand MetaMask, a little bit more difficult if you don't understand MetaMask. So if you want to get into DeFi full stop, you need to get a Web3 wallet. The best one of those is still MetaMask. And you can get Radix today by getting mad at MetaMask, loading it up with some USDC and going and buying some RADs on Uniswap, where we've got liquidity, of around $16 million. As of this week on Thursday, we're going to start trading on Bitfinex. So if you want to go and buy Radix tokens without having to do the whole DeFi thing, then you can go and do that. But I would strongly recommend going and trying. If you haven't yet tried DeFi, if you haven't yet had that user experience, getting up to it is difficult. Getting, you know, sorting out your MetaMask, sorting out your private keys, getting your crypto into that wallet, working out how to interface with things like Uniswap. That's your barrier. But once you're there, it is amazing at how good the user experience is post that point. So if you want to get into Radix and experience DeFi, that's the route I'd say. MetaMask, get some USDC onto your MetaMask, go to Uniswap and buy some Rads. If you're just like, hey man, this sounds great, I just want to get some exposure to Radix, then you can buy it on Bitfinex this week.
Okay, fantastic. Piers, thank you so much. It was really an interesting interview, and I look forward to see the next development and announcement that you are making, mainly on Medium, is that, and obviously the social media, isn't it? What's the main channel where you communicate? So, you know,
Twitter, our blog on radixdlt.com. Our blog has tons of information about Radix and related content. Telegram. We have a big channel in Telegram, and then there's also our Discord channel, which is also pretty active too.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Piers.
Thank you so much for having me, Steph.
Okay, this is everything from today. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and send us any feedback that you have. I will see you next time.